Hi, Ms. Turner. I'm your student from your class of Monday and Wednesdays, 5:30 to 6:45. I'm Juan Suarez. Uh, for my final project video, I chose the topic of nomenclators. So pretty much nomenclators is naming. So I'm going to explain how, like naming ionic bonds, covalent bonds, and also the nomenclators about acids. So let's go. So first, I'm going to explain you ionic bond. So the first thing you need to know about ionic bond is that it is between a metal and a non-metal. Okay, so there is a three rule for naming it. So the first is name the metal. You have to name the non-metal using it. So I'm going to explain it to you later. And third, end the non-metal with IDE. Okay. So for the root name, these are the elements we like the non-metals we always use. So the root name of these elements will be for nitrogen niter, for phosphorus phos, for oxygen is ox, for sulfide is sulf. This is fluor. This will be chlor. You have to add a line in here. So these are the root names. And here, brom and iod. Also have ionic bond for polyatomic ions. So you have as well as you have the three rule. You have a two rule. So first you have to name the metal, as well as for the normal ionic bond. Name the metal. Then you have to name the polyatomic ion. Okay. Then for the polyatomic ions, you have always the polyatomic ions, as you know, have a plus and oxygen. So for this, instead of ending it with IDE as you end on ionic bonds, here you have to end with 8 or 8. So this is pretty much what we have done. Now we are going to the examples. Okay, so here we have a sodium, which is Na plus 1. We have oxygen, which is -2, which has, so when you combine them, you have sodium to oxygen. So for naming, as I show you on our three rules, so first you name the metal. So we have our sodium. You name the non-metal with its root name. So we have oxygen. So we have oxygen root name, which is ox. Okay, so we put ox. And the third rule is end the non-metal with an IDE. So we have sodium oxide. Okay, perfect. Then we have here carbon and sulfur. Okay, so for carbon, it has a plus two. It works with plus 2. And then we have sulfur with a -2. So this -2 and +2 goes. So we have carbon and S, sulfur. So naming, the first step is name the metal, which is carbon. And the second is name the the non-metal using its root name. So we have a sulfur, so here is sulf, carbon, sulf, and the third rule is add to the non-metal IDE. So you have carbon sulfide. We have aluminum, which works with +3, and an oxygen, which works with -2. We will have aluminum 2O3. Here, the metal, which is the first step of our rules, aluminum, name the metal, no. And we already have it here, oxide. Ox, which is a root name of oxygen, and IDE. Perfect. We have magnesium, which works with Mg +2. We have sulfur, which works with S -2. So this will cancel. So we'll have MgS. So for naming it, you'll have magnesium, which is our metal. Our second step is the root name of sulf and add an IDE. Perfect. Now we'll have a problem with polyatomic ion. So as you remember, for naming the ionic bonds, you end your non-metal with an IDE. So for the polyatomic ion, you end your non-metal, your polyatomic, with an ite or ate. In this case, we will end it with ite because it's nitrate. No, not nitrate. Nitrate is NO3. Okay, so we'll have chromium, which works with +2 and +3. In this case, we will we will work with the biggest one, which is +3, and NO2, which is nitrate, that it works with -1. So you usually not put that one under negative. So you will have Cr, you put parentheses, NO2 and 3. So okay, you have Cr, your metal. So as you can see, the rule, name the metal. You have chromium. You have nitrite, that your polyatomic. Nitrite. So for covalent bonds, you need to know that you use 2 non-metals. So you have 2 steps for naming it. Your first step will be write the first element using its prefix. So here are number of atoms, and now I will write the prefixes. So yeah, the first step is write the first element with its prefixes. The second step will be write the second element using its root name, as well as you use it on the previous ionic bond. Also, you have to add its prefixes and end it with an IDE. Okay, so you'll see it is not that difficult. So for doing its prefixes will be for one number of atoms will be mono. For 2 will be D. For 3, 3. For tetra. For 5, it is penta. For 6, hexa. For 7, hepta. For 8, octa. For 9, non. And for 10, dec. So this is what we have done so far. Now I'm gonna give you some examples of covalent bonds. Okay, so for naming it, I'll give you your two rules. So your first step is write your first element with its prefix. So here you have nitrogen and a 2. You know 2 is D, so it will be D. And here for your second step is write the second element with its prefix, which is 4. You write tetra, which is 4. The root name of oxygen is ox, and finish it with an IDE, tetraoxide. Then we have water. In here you have hydrogen and oxygen. So for hydrogen you use the same step. Hydrogen, you have a 2, so you use the prefix, which is D, hydrogen. Then you use, for the second element, you use a prefix, but here is something. For when you have one atom, you don't write the prefix of 1, which is mono. Just don't write it. So you have O, which is ox, so it is the root name, and you add your IDE at the end. So yeah, the hydrogen oxide. We're going to start talking about nomenclatures for the acids. Okay, for the acids, you know that it always contains a hydrogen, and so contains, and it usually is written at first of your element. So we have as well here, we have 3 rules for naming the acids. So the first rule is that you write hydra, like begin your naming with the word hydro. Then you use the root name of your second element, and end it, the root name, and then end it with ik, with the word ik. And for last, you have to write the word acid. We have H, as we said, it contains hydrogen, and it mostly comes first. So you put, your first rule is hydro. Then you put the root name of fluor, which is, and then end it with that ik, fluoric, hydrofluoric, and then the third step is acid. So you will have hydrofluoric acid. Here you will have hydrochloric, and ending with the acid. So this is the binary acids. Okay, so we already done with the binary acids. Now it's turn for the oxyacids. Okay, so as the name says, it just contains oxygen, the hydrogen that we already talked about it, and it usually comes first. Okay, so we have 3 steps. So our first step will be, so it's a very important rule you have to apply always. For oxyacid, you never write the word hydro at first. Never. The second is locate your polyatomic ion, and you will have to change the ending. So polyatomic, change ending. So you will have to change the ending if it is the list is, if you are using the least one, it is which it usually ends with "ite." You'll use O's, or if it is the big one, 8, and you finish it with an ik. Then your third rule is write the word acid, such as here on the binary acids. Well, here. First, okay, so never write hydro. So you will have, so the second step is write your polyatomic. So our polyatomic here is nitrate, right? So as we have 8, we'll have to change it by a ic. So we'll have nitric and the word acid. Here you don't write hydro. So you find your polyatomic, which is SO4, which is sulfate, right? Sulfate. So this will be sulf, and here is 8. You change it with an ic, sulfic acid. And another example for using ite will be if you change the, instead of putting NO3, you put NO2. This will be nitrite. So this will be your nitrous acid.